Rain, rain. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of lessons from my mother. It was raining heavily. Well, for Montreal standards, it was raining somewhat heavily yesterday. So I didn't have the light, and I had a wonderful brunch yesterday, so I can really set time aside to um, do my session. So I'll do it today, right before I leave for work. Today's session is lesson number 69. We're hitting the 70 mark. There's only a handful left, and I had to interview around 10, 12 friends of mine to collect them all together. We're almost there, right? So I think this series should be done by the end of the year, if not sooner. If not sooner, it I think it will be done. Well, we can if I have 30 weeks. No, I didn't think I have 30 weeks left. But we'll figure it out. It will be done because in 2025 there's another series that I'm going to be starting about films, and we've already planned it. So hopefully this will be done by then. Today's lesson is lesson number 69. Cursing blackens the tongue. Now, let me ask you something, because most of the people watching this currently or even later are adults. Most adults I know, with a few exceptions of my parents and my aunt, most adults swear. They curse, they use foul language, um, but they strongly reprimand their children from using it. That has never made sense to me. If there is behavior in children that you're curtailing, there's a reason you're curtailing that, right? So I understand that viewing sexually explicit material for children is problematic, like I discussed last week. Um, but as adults, people tend to view it in movies. But if you take it to the extreme of watching pornographic content, that's also problematic, right? So there is a corollary. Well, as a child, you're not supposed to watch this, but even as an adult, you're supposed to watch it in very little moderation if it's done on a movie. But otherwise, you're supposed to. The millions of negative side effects of watching pornographic content. Obviously, we all know that, mental and physical, and social and communal, whatever. So it's tied to it. Same is the case for using foul language, right? So well, no, let's do other behavior. When you're a child and if you're physically fighting your sibling or a friend, your parents or the friend's parents are going to stop. They're going to say, "Stop fighting." Why? Because it's dangerous. It could hurt somebody. You take it to an adult behavior, it's the same thing, right? If two adults are fighting, the goal of the community around them, if they're not recording it with their smartphones, or security forces, is to move them aside and say, "Stop fighting." Unless it's a gang war and you're fighting in the middle of the night and you're supposed to fight, or if it's the MMA or boxing where you have a referee and you have clear rules of combat, rules of engagement, right? So all these behaviors which we curtail in children have corollaries as an adult. Why doesn't that exist with language? I've said that to a few people because the way I was raised by my mother and father and my grandfather, we we don't use foul language in our house in any language because we speak English, Urdu, Punjabi. My father speaks Arabic. My mother now speaks Arabic too. I speak Turkish. I used to speak Chinese. My brother and I speak German. We have quite a few languages between us. We don't swear. Even between each other, we rarely curse or swear or use foul language. But as I work in Canada, I've worked in England, I've worked in Turkey, I've heard the use of the F word, the B word, the C word, the D word, there's the T word, the L word. I don't even know what the L word is, but there's so many people who use so much language, and and nobody seems to bat an eyelash. It's just accepted. And I haven't been able to circle that square because the corollary still exists. If you're using foul language, hear me out. If you're using foul language, then one way or the other, it's going to translate into foul thinking, right? Because there's a big connection. That is why in 1984 by George Orwell, If you limit speech, you limit thought. Totalitarianism is thought policing by speech policing. You control this, and very quickly you start controlling that. If I tell you you can't say something, and I tell you that all the time, every time, then after a while it starts affecting this. And it starts saying, I can't even think that. If I can't express it, then I can't think it. You know what I mean? It has a relapse effect. Now, I am a freedom of speech absolutist. Absolutist. I believe you should be able to say anything. You should be able to say fire in a crowded theater. You should be able to say bomb on an airplane. You should be able to say anything. You shouldn't be able to do anything. So if you take a bomb on an airplane, you have to be arrested and disposed of, however the security forces think it suitable. If you light a fire in a theater, no, the fire should be put out and you should be arrested or whatever. Actions have consequences. I believe speech should be allowed completely freely. However, freedom comes with responsibility. There can't be unhindered freedom. It can't exist. Freedom comes with responsibilities. So if you're going to say whatever you want to say, you need to back it up and you need to say, your defense can't be, well, I can say whatever I want to say, therefore I said it. No. Why did you say it? Why do you believe that? What you say ties into what you think and what you believe. It's just that simple. They're not. There's no cognitive dissonance here. So if you're using foul language and curse words, you need to know why you're using them. I've seen so many comedians, stand-up comedians, who will deliver a simple line and add an F word in the middle, and the audience will go, ha ha ha. I said, would that joke have been funnier or just as funny if he had removed the F word? No. Then why was it funny? Why was it funny? Why did it make you laugh when they used a foul word? It's less about the joke, it's more about that word. You know what I mean? And I've noticed that multiple times. Stand-up comics go up on stage and they would deliver simple lines, not even in a specifically funny manner or cadence or anything, but they deliver it and they throw in an F word or a B or C, whatever word, and the audience will go, ha, 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 that's so funny. Wow, this wall. Oh, I think comedians use curse words as a social lubricant. I think they use it to break ices with the audience. So the audience is like, oh, I feel so much at ease now that we're a bit open. Because if it's a very stuffy comedian, you also feel stuffy and you're like, can I laugh at this? I don't know. But if the joke of the purpose of stand-up comics, one of them is not to just make you laugh, but to put you at ease. And I think that's what the swear word does. But it comes with consequences. If, let's say, Bill Burr or Andrew Schultz or Eddie Murphy, one of my favorites. If you're watching Delirious or watching Eddie Murphy at the Mark Twain Prize or whatever, and you watch him and he's swearing and you're like, haha, that's so funny. Your 5-year-old child walks into the room. Do you turn it down or do you kick them out or do you let them watch it? Your 10-year-old walks in the room. Do you let them watch it? Do you let them hear it and repeat it? So your 10-year-old, like I have a nephew who's 13, and I police his language if he ever uses these words, but he doesn't use these words at all because his parents have raised him not to use these words. So if I'm watching Eddie Murphy and laughing and my nephew walks in, I'd turn it down. And I said, no, you shouldn't be watching this. And he can rightfully say, well, I'm 13 now, I'm a teenager, I'm growing up. Why are you watching this? And I'll say, well, no, when you're 18, you'll be able to watch it. As if the laws of language, decency, dignity stop at 18. But what I have understood is that the laws of personal responsibility begin at 18. So right now, I am responsible for you. Therefore, I'm not exposing you to this content. However, when you're 18, you're going to be responsible for yourself. Therefore, you can watch it on your own. I think that is horrible parenting. And that is horrible raising of children. That's like saying, well, while you're under my watch, you can't kill people. But as an adult, you can do whatever you like. No. You can run people over with your car. No. You can go shooting a bank. No. You can steal people's clothes and money. No. As an adult, no. So we know that there is behavior that is wrong. And I would be the first to say that this behavior I have with my nephew is hypocritical. But I tend not to watch a lot of stand up comics who swear a lot. I've observed this trend. But for example, Delirious was in the 80s. Eddie Murphy Delirious and Raw were in the 80s. They were long, long time ago, 70s or 80s, right? So after that, there are some events where he might have sworn, but otherwise hasn't. He hasn't even done stand up. Kevin Hart also. Dave Chappelle, I don't enjoy the swearing part. I'm just giving an example, even with stand up comic stuff, or with movies, or with cartoons. There are adult cartoons as well. I don't watch the ones where language is foul because we're raised this way. So my mum's lesson was very interesting because as children, you feel very liberated when you can use a curse word, especially if you're four brothers, because you know my elder brothers have always been larger than me, not taller anymore, but larger, and they could beat the living life out of me many times. But I'm a fighter, okay, and I'd fight back, and I'd take blows and I'd hit back. I do all of that. Um, but then if you can't hurt them physically, you try to hurt them verbally, and you go and say, "Well, you're a," and you'd say something, and they're like, "How dare you say that to me?" I remember I was 5 years old. My grandmother, my father's mother, was still alive. God rest her soul in great peace. I remember she was still alive, and my elder brother, my second brother, he had punched me or pushed me or elbowed me, and he was running, and I was running after him, and he had jumped on the bed because if he's on the bed and I'm on the ground, by the time I get on the bed, he'll be off, and I would never catch him. So he got on the bed, and I just like, "Oh, you're a," and I said something. I'm not going to say it now. It was very, very, very simple. It's an owl's child, an owl's student. But in Urdu or Punjabi, it can be a bit hurtful. We don't use that term normally. And he went, "Can't believe you said that to me." And he ran past me all the way downstairs to my grandmother's room and said, "Ali just said this to me." And she was reading a book and she was like, "Come on." I was 5. And she's like, "Why'd you say that?" I don't know. Well, I was almost 5. And well, I don't know why I said it. Apologize to your brother. No, apologize to your brother. Fine, I'm sorry. You shouldn't say that. And she sat me down and she told me you shouldn't say these terms. And she didn't go into all this exposition of it does this and it does that. But she told me not to say it. My mum used to have this wonderful technique. If we ever picked something up from school or heard something like this, because in Pakistan you have um, housekeepers and work staff and drivers and security guards and gardeners. So there is a chance that you hear this language. In fact, there was a babysitter, caretaker, babysitter that was appointed when I was an infant because my parents are both doctors, so they would be at work. And she used to live in the house with her mother and father, and they would use a lot of foul language. So I started copying it when I was a year old. My mom came home one day and said, "Why is he using these words? Why is he using these words?" And then one day, my mum's because her father was a detective, so my mum has those detective Sherlock Holmes qualities. Like she would look at us as a, "You haven't eaten your lunch today." She has those qualities. So she quietly went to the servants' quarter, as they're called, and she listened up, and rightly so, she heard that language being used. And she knocked, and they came out, "Yes." And she said, "We have to go." "Why? Why? What happened?" "You can't, you use this language and you're teaching it to my kids." And those 3 people were from a village and they were working in the city and they didn't find anything wrong with it. They said, "Yeah, but this is how we speak." And my mom's like, "I don't want my kids speaking this way." And they were just like, "What? This is normal." And my mom's like, "No, not for us." She said, "No, it's normal for everyone." "No, no, not for us. You have to go." And when you're interviewing somebody as a housekeeper or as a babysitter, from then on, my mom started including this, like, "Okay, which village are you from, or which town are you from?" And in our house, we don't use this language. Do you have a problem with that? She instilled that into the interview. It's so interesting to me. And when we grew slightly older, I was an infant at that time. When we grew slightly older, and if we ever use this term, or even use the terms like stupid or idiotic, she'd say, "Come here, show me your tongue." His tongue is turning black. I'm like, "What?" And we'd run to the mirror and I'd stick it out and lick at it. And obviously, it wasn't black. But she's like, you can't see it. You can't see it. Your tongue's turning black. You used that term, didn't you? You used that term, your tongue's turning black. And it was a huge psyops on my mum's part. My mum's a beautiful strategist, especially raising a child. And I believe all of that was necessary. And I celebrate all of her decisions. That's why I'm doing this series. It's for my mum. But that was genius because as a 6, 7, 10 year old, I'd run to the mirror and I'd look at my tongue and I was like, wait, I can't see it. How? Where's the black part? And she'd say, oh, you don't see it? You will. Oh, have your eyes turned black too? Oh, you can't even see the black. And it would screw up with our brains. And then she'd sit us down and explain it and then make us apologize to each other. All of that. But this thing about cursing blackens your tongue was just in there. And you'd say, ugh, is that true? And as we grew older, like even in our teen years, we had realized, no, that's not true. That doesn't happen. Mum was using a pedagogical, didactic training technique. But by that time, she had exercised it at first systems. So we weren't used to swearing at all. At all. I mean, I've had substantial fights with my brothers because we're brothers. Obviously, we're supposed to fight. I can't remember swearing at them. Like the worst thing I have said to my and I'm the firebrand, okay? I'm the Aries. I can ruffle up feathers. I've fought with all of them. The worst thing I've said to my eldest brother is, "Come on, then." In in Urdu, I said, "Aja phir." Literal translation. That's the worst thing I said because in England you say, "Come on, then," and you get ready for a fight. That's the worst thing I've said to him because he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna rip you apart." He was. I was what? I was 15, so he must have been 19, and he was about to rip me apart. And my second brother jumped in between. But that's the worst thing I've said to them. If you speak to them, hopefully I get a chance to interview them both. They would say, "Yeah, that's probably the worst provocation we've ever had in the family when we're fighting. Otherwise, no, nothing. We've grabbed and punched and done all of that, but verbally, this was the worst one. There was no foul language used at all because the punishment for foul language wouldn't have been, "Oh, I'm going to punch your face." It's going to be, "Okay, I'm telling mom." "No, no, no, please, no, 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 no. I'm telling mom now and dad." Oh, oh Lord, what's going to happen now? And that was a severe, severe source of fear. I have to tell you, it was a severe source of fear. Oh, what happens if mom and dad find out? And then you apologize. No, no, please don't tell them. And they say, okay, and then still tell them. It's all part of being raised with brothers or as a child. What's happening? Ah, so so the goal here is I know a lot of people today who are influenced by the liberal agenda. They think that you should leave children free and let them grow up as they want to be into butterflies and whatever. Sadly, that is not good parenting. It isn't. All the stats work against you if you believe that. That's not good parenting to say, "Oh, do whatever you want and I'll just protect you from everything when things go wrong." No, no, no. You're supposed to train the child. You're supposed to teach the child. You're supposed to instill values into the child. You're supposed to do that. And in this context, I sincerely believe using psyops like my mum did is perfectly reasonable, if not necessitated. It perfectly is because a 7-year-old can be insanely stubborn. Case in point. Exhibit A. And you can't fight with a child. You can hit them and they just take the hit. They take the hit. And you can punish them and they take the punishment. And you can scream at them and they can take the screaming. And these are all impacting them negatively. So you don't want to do that too much or at all. It's best not to hit the child unless necessary or scream at the child. It's best not to. You're supposed to train them, not oppress them. There's a vast difference, right? So then a strategist like my mom would be like, okay, okay, let's get under their skins and maneuver them from inside rather than just screaming and throwing stuff and just being upset. And I'm ever, ever so grateful, ever so grateful that she trained us this way because because obviously we were hit, and I think well deserved, really well deserved, because it's made us into responsible adults. But this psyops level analysis of show me your tongue's black. Oh, his tongue's black. And then we say, what? Ah, I can't believe my tongue's black. That really instilled certain values. So we don't use foul language. It's I really had to think back to times where I've used the F word. What I say is holy guacamole. I've said that a lot. Holy guacamole. I've said that. I say, in the name of all that is holy. I say that a lot. And oh, for the love of God, I'm British. For God's sakes, for the love of God, I say, oh, for the love of God, give me a break, give up. Those terms instead of, oh, no, hasn't happened. I'm honestly trying to think. Must have happened because I've had friends where I've used terms, but I also remember being around friends who use them so often that after a little while I distance myself. I don't like want to hang out with so and so. I have There's a lot of negative words because you don't carry on saying those words in positive undertones or context. You can start saying, well, oh, it was effing brilliant. Oh, it was effing that. You start with it, but after a while, it devolves into negative. There are controls that you have to put on the tongue responsibly, like the eyes, like the ears. You have to. One of the core tenets of Islam is a control of the senses, all senses. So you can't touch anything you want to touch. You can't go around grabbing people. You can't. You have to control yourself. You can't go around staring at people, at parts of them or their faces. Even forget sexual. You can't stare at a person's face as they're walking. They're like, dude, what are you doing? You're like, they're my eyes. I can do whatever I want. Well, okay, it's my fist. I can do whatever I want. You can't go around smelling people. You smell like cheese. You can't do that. You can't go around tasting people. You can't go around saying stuff. You know what I mean? So it's freedom with responsibility, and it's a core tenet of Islam. And I'm glad my mum taught it to us in this manner, because it's here now and it never goes away. I'm going to stop now. I have to go leave for work. It has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful week, and I shall see you.